Hi, in today's discussion, we will focus on the problem of scale and how it factors into a government's ability to effectively operate and meet the needs of its population. To begin, I will explain a few thoughts on governments, leading into the problems of scale and government's ability to operate and meet the population's needs. Most of my information has been obtained from a spectacular two-part video presented by Dr. Don Livingston and a few articles that detail and collaborate to expound the information obtained from the videos, which have come from scholarly articles, all of which will be cited at the conclusion of this video. To begin, there were two types of thought in this government traditional thinking. People who align themselves with the first one have an Aristotle thought or traditional political order, which is believed to be natural to man, just as a family and order are natural instincts. Whereas Thomas Hobbes, which is the second view or tradition of thinking, viewed political order as not natural, and that it is instead determined by will or something artificial that we construct. Guy Peters defines two different variants that suggest the problems of scale and how it factors into a government's ability to effectively operate and meet the needs of its population, defining these two differing views, stating that, on one hand, bureaucracy has been seen as a leviathan, an integrated monolithic institution unfettered by political checks and balances and possessing an insatiable appetite for power. On the other hand, bureaucracy is also viewed as a court jester, a loose collection of agencies lacking ideas, coordination, and common sense, which at best muddles through and at worst makes an absolute fool of itself. In the view of those following the Aristotle thought, political order or community should be small, whereas in the Hobbes thought it should be larger, very large in fact. Without the artisan of government, people would be in a state of anarchy in the modern or Hobbesian tradition. Hobbes believed that people give up their natural right for a social contract to a central or sovereign government. Anarchy was considered by Hobbes to be the worst scenario for human life, which is why people must enter into this social contract by transferring their own absolute power to a government where the office stays the same no matter who holds that office. The modern state is what Hobbes calls the locus of power, essentially an artificial man with artificial human parts, holding absolute power in order to eradicate the possibility of anarchy amongst a community. The modern state holds its origins from the Middle Ages. Hobbesian tradition of modern state is essentially a controlled anarchy where every person lives their life on their purpose or path with no regard to the other people in their community, but also where people, for the most part, but not everyone, abides by the rules, regulations, and laws present for their community. Smaller subgroups form as well with leaders of their own, such as governors and mayors in the governmental setup. This can cause problems in and of itself, seeing as how the will of the leader of the central government, sometimes a king, president, so on and so forth, can differ from the local government leader, such as a governor or mayor, which can create anarchy and confusion on the people. So it is essential that in this modern Hobbesian tradition that the central government leader keeps control in a hierarchical order throughout the smaller sub-leaders. What can also cause problems is that the leaders of these smaller social orders may have the complete loyalty of the people, allowing the local leader to take control and absolute power instead of the central or sovereign government. The pros to local government leaders and offices is that local government law enables the people who live within these discrete areas to organize themselves into distinct political units and gives those units power to make decisions with respect to a range of public policies and services. So in other words, local governments do sometimes offer the ability to govern and offer needs to a smaller population. But at the same time, the smaller population can still be divided in beliefs and political thought. All of these things apply to social order or applies to any social order or group, including clubs, religious affiliations, etc. In order to establish control by the sovereign entity over all these social orders, they can interfere at any point, establishing their dominance. The competition amongst the differing levels of government is known as vertical competition, while competition amongst different local governments with the same rank or responsibility is called horizontal competition. Both of these competitions can cause severe problems when addressing the needs of the population, but horizontal competition can cause issues where the central government cannot find a solid solution that will fit both of the competing equal-ranked horizontal government systems or leaders. Resistance to the situation of the second body, also known as the modern state that we addressed earlier, to the centralization by the leading government affiliate in Europe. Resistance from all parties or social orders at one time or another from the Middle Ages, when this modern state became a normalized practice, up until the 7th century. So there was resistance there from the time it began up until the early to mid 17th century from all differing parties and social orders. These resistances and challenges pose many problems for the sovereign party to be able to give the needs to the population and govern in general, especially when later in time the ideology of monarchy itself was challenged, like the republicanism in early 17th century. The nomenclature of the party established after the French Revolution was a republic, but republics had to be small, of which France was not in the least. Overall, one of the largest problems of scale is the size of population, as one government over a large, densely populated area may not have the ability to operate or provide the essentials for everyone's needs. A large problem source for the government's ability to operate and meet these needs of the population stands with the sometimes split loyalty between the sovereign or central government and the local government. In other words, when both sectors differ in opinions on how the social order should be run and are both vying for the population's vote or loyalty, it can create confusion and anarchy, which Hobbes deems the sole purpose of having a social contract with the government in the first place. Thank you for watching my video on the problem of scale and how it factors into a government's ability to effectively operate and meet the needs of its population. It has been a pleasure to be amongst you guys as a classmate.